Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Pup and Away podcast. We are experiencing technical difficulties yet again. Riverside, which is my recording platform, seems to be having some issues. So we were going to be starting this episode off without our theme music and without the theme music at the end as well. But I'm really excited, so let's go ahead and just kick off into everything else. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. I am very excited to introduce you guys to Hanna Mandelbaum. I've had the honor of not only meeting her, but listening to her give quite a few educational talks at the Feed Real Summit and then some other online educational stuff that she's done. But Hanna Mandelbaum is the co-founder of Evermore Pet Food, a pioneering brand in the fresh pet food space known for its ethical and transparent ingredient sourcing. With 2 decades of experience in the pet industry, first as a pet care business owner and certified professional dog trainer, CPDT. I didn't know she was a CPDT. And for the last 15 years with Evermore, she has developed extensive expertise in animal welfare, responsible sourcing, and pet food marketing claims. Hanna is passionate about educating pet parents and industry professionals on the vital connections between sourcing practices, pet health, farmed animal welfare, and the environment. Her unwavering commitment to transparency and integrity in pet food has established her as a trusted resource. With a knack for simplifying complex topics, she empowers consumers to make informed choices about what they put in their pet's bowl and confidently navigate the often misleading world of the pet and human food marketing. You guys will learn absolutely a ton of stuff in today's episode. So if you are the type of person who likes to take notes, I highly recommend grabbing your notebook or your whatever it is that you take notes on, and let's get to it.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. I'm here with Hanna. Hello, Hanna. How are you?
Good. Hi, Stephanie. I'm in single digits up here, but otherwise doing great.
Cold. Yes, it is still cold. We were supposed to record last week, which was like the polar vortex time. And unfortunately, you got snowed in like crazy and had to reschedule due to some plowing.
Shoveling. So much shoveling.
I'm a Texas girl. I don't know the difference between the two. I'm guessing one hand and the other one, a plow with like an actual.
Yes, a machine, but we're talking a lot of upper body.
Worked out the muscle.
Oh, yeah.
I'm also crossing my fingers because as we're recording this, I'm getting lots of feedback from my own mic. We did a test. The test audio sounded okay. So we're all crossing our fingers that this is not annoying. I'm also just kind of distracting myself a little bit through it. So if I talk funny, that's why. So, Hannah, we have so much to cover. I have listened to your lectures at the Federal Summit. I've listened to some of your podcast appearances. You're a huge educator, so I've listened to a lot of your speaking engagements. And every time I hear you talk, I walk away with so much information that I'm always taking notes. Like I have my notepad ready. Even though I think a lot of the stuff that we are talking about today are things that I've heard you talk about before, I still know I'm going to walk away with so much more information. So I'm very excited for today and our chat. And I apologize if, again, I'm a little bit all over the place. I'm excited for the chat. And also, my mic feedback is just.
Well, I'm excited to chat.
Good.
I'm always game to do it all over again if the audio doesn't come out.
Okay. Another thing that I want to say is thank you so much for donating to and contributing to our swag bags. So for the listeners, we just had our 10th birthday party at Pup and Away. We usually do a big swag bag for the first 30 attendees of any one of our events. And this one was the biggest one that we possibly could have. And Hanna, you guys contributed your little treats. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, sure. This is our new line that is perpetually about to be launched because of website issues. But we're doing single source protein, freeze dried treats. And what's really special about them is we do it in partnership with different farmers, ranchers, and we share about who they are on the packaging. And then there's also a little QR code. So if you want to learn more, you can go learn all about our amazing vendors, which that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to promote and really work with ethical ranchers.
There are a lot of really cool things about Evermore, which is your dog food company. And I think a lot of it really goes back to the sourcing, the quality of the ingredients, exactly what you just said. You're partnering, you're very mindfully and like intentionally partnering with ranchers that and farms that meet a very high quality standard. So why did you start Evermore? Why did the concept come about? And what made you and you have a co-founder as well,
Yeah,
correct?
Allison, my business partner. Do you got a minute?
Awesome.
Like, this is like a pull up a chair, make yourself comfortable story.
I got a chair. We are sitting in it.
So we started in a little bit of an unusual way. I used to be a dog walker and trainer. My business partner, Allison, was a health supportive private chef, right? This sounds like, oh, dog walker, chef, get together, start a company. But that's not actually how it happened. Another dog walking client of mine, her name was Mia. She had lived in Tribeca during 9/11, when the towers came down. So this is a little bit of like a wayback machine. And shortly afterwards, her dog developed cancer. In fact, like much of the neighborhood, the dogs developed cancer just from being around all of those like toxins and particulates. So long before people were feeling the effects, dogs were. And this dog was given a 6-month prognosis. And like all of us, she loved her dog and wanted to do everything she could to help extend his life and deal with this cancer. And she landed on home cooking and herbal medicine. She worked in collaboration with a holistic vet in Vermont, and her dog ended up living another 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah, right. And in the meantime, she started kind of cooking for all the dogs in the neighborhood. Like she became the neighborhood dog chef and started a small company that she like had quasi scaled, but I like to call it like the underground dog food company. She got priced out of Tribeca and moved to my neighborhood in Brooklyn, and I became her dog walker. One day I get a call in the morning, and I was like, oh, am I late to walk her dog? And she was in the middle of having a stroke. Like, her voice was slurring on the other end of the line. And I'm
Oh
like,
gosh.
"Did you call 911?" "No." "Okay, call 911. Like, you don't call your dog walker first." But I ended up kind of, like, dropping everything and being in the situation where I was, like, helping her take care of her life. She, was supposed to get better in, like, 6 weeks. In the meantime, my now business partner, Allison, like, her building got sold out from under her, very New York story. So she just needed to stay somewhere in the short term. So it kind of came about like, hey, why don't you sublet this woman's apartment while she's in rehab? Like, we can help temporarily with this dog food company, then everyone will be on their merry way. That's not exactly what happened. She ended up having another stroke in the hospital and ended up being unable to like breathe or speak for a period of time. And like this is all like truly awful. Meanwhile, all of her old customers would be contacting us like, "Oh, this is a tragedy. Can we still get our dog food?" Uh yeah, I mean priorities, right? And as this is happening, Allison's own dog, Connor, who's like a 6-year-old shepherd lab, or as I like to say, schlab, started doing miraculously on the food. And this dog had never had a bad meal in his life. Like he was raw fed, and sometimes she'd home cook for him. Like it's not like he was coming from this like kibble baseline, but just like he was doing so well. Like, he was 6, he was getting a little, a little chonky around the edges, he lost weight, like, his coat glistened, like, all of the things. So, we had a state of union with Mia, and we were like, "Look, like, we think that this is this thing that should be there in the world, but this has to start as a new company, right? Like, the way this is happening is not legitimate at all." And very much with her blessing, we kind of big learning curve, right? Consulted with the right people, figured out what you needed to do to legally sell dog food, um, started a new company, and here we are 16 years later. After Evermore started, she actually passed away within a few months. So
Mhm.
it was that's the story. But as we're stepping into this, right? Like, this is not something that Allison and I ever intended to do with our lives. We both love animals, right? Not just pets, but the farmed animals that are raised for food. And we came to the mutual decision that if we are going to be responsible for putting so much meat into the world, so many like meat products, that we would do so like in the way that we could feel the best possible, that we are making the best choices that we can make for the welfare of the animals that are going into
I
the
love that.
food. That was just like a day one priority.
That's awesome. It's not something that y'all grew into. It's always just something that's been there since
Yeah, it
the
was always
conception of Evermore.
doing the best that we can, right? Like, we didn't start
Yeah.
out with 100% grass-fed beef. Like, we had to get to the point where we had the purchasing power where we could buy that. So, in addition to like doing the best we can, it was always with the understanding that you can always do better.
Mhm. Yeah. So the company started in 2009,
Yep.
correct? Okay,
Yeah.
16 years. Um, I was definitely not a gently cooked feeder or raw feeder back then. So, but my understanding is it was still kind of not very trendy.
Oh, it was not a
So,
thing.
yeah, we're still very much based on kibble.
Yeah.
Was it the influence from your previous customer, Maya?
Mia.
Mia, um, that led to Evermore being gently cooked
Oh, no, it
or
was gently cooked to begin with. Like,
okay,
the sort of food that we inherited, this recipe that we then made a lot of changes to, was gently cooked.
right.
So at the time, right, raw was starting to take off. Like, you had Stella and Chewy's, you had,
Mhm.
like, Steve's, you had Bravo was a company then, I don't know if they're still around.
Right.
And of course, like Primal, like those companies were there. Nature's Variety, those companies were there, but there weren't really gently cooked companies. Like, I can think of a couple that started around the same time, but it wasn't like we were coming into a space that existed. It was
Right,
it was very much this new weird Wild West. Like, people didn't know what to do with the concept.
right. So did y'all stick with gently cooked because that's, like, what Mia did and that's what you guys inherited and you saw the positive changes and you said, "Let's keep it."
Well, we so stuck with Gently Cook, and why we do Gently Cook is, one, because it worked, it was working for our dogs, and two, because there wasn't anything like that, right? Like,
Mhm,
there was plenty of raw foods, there were new raw foods coming every day, but there wasn't something like what we were doing at the time, and there was a clear need for it.
mhm.
That was pretty hard to express early on because people didn't realize why there was a need for it, but it was there. We
Yeah,
just had to kind of, like, prove it.
yeah. So like I said, I've been feeding raw for I feed both now, but I'm gonna tell you why I feed both. So I've been feeding raw for quite some time. I have 2 schnauzers. I have a 16-year-old schnauzer named Sully and an 8-year-old schnauzer named Rishi. Or I guess Rishi, if that's how you really want to pronounce it, but I think Rishi sounds cuter, so we go with that. And, uh, in September, so 5-ish months ago, Sully, what I think had a little bit of a little pancreatic moment. It was never fully confirmed because we didn't do the actual ultrasound that you're supposed to get to truly diagnose pancreatitis. But, he was eating raw for years. I don't even know how many. I'm really bad with timelines. And of course, he was eating duck, which isn't the best idea for a senior schnauzer.
Yeah,
Um,
they're prone, so
yes, very prone. And so I obviously don't feed duck anymore because it's high in fat, but I also transitioned him over to a gently cooked. So as from my understanding, there are possibly some health conditions or maybe certain conditions that a dog might have in which gently cooked could possibly be the best answer versus raw or like obviously you have a gently cooked company. Where do your thoughts align between gently cooked raw? When is one better than the other, if any time?
I mean, look, I'm very much a feed the dog in front of you person. So I'm never gonna tell someone like, "Oh, don't feed this. This is always better." In terms of where I think Gently Cook medically shines, if you look, like, it takes the body energy to digest, right?
Mhm.
And when you're cooking something, you're breaking it down. So it's making it easier on that dog system. Also, we hear all of these great things now about like antioxidants and fruits and vegetables and, all of these benefits that you can get that unless you're doing something to process those vegetables, the dog's not going to be able to, digest through all the cellulose. So in order to optimize bioavailability for produce ingredients, like cooking really does do a lot of heavy lifting there. But as far as conditions go, we've really see a lot of people purchasing the food when their dogs have cancer, renal disease, pancreatitis is more like a fat concern, but cooked diets, if they do have more plant matter, do tend to be a little lower in fat. But really, anytime your dog's like really struggling with something from an immune standpoint, a gently cooked formula can be really helpful. Senior dogs too, definitely senior
Mhm.
dogs.
Yeah, that was the biggest reason why I switched Sully over, just because he's 16.
Yeah,
He
I
can
mean,
legally drive a car now. So.
your digestion gets a little bit more sensitive as you get older too. So
Yeah, and I mean, I'm 36, right? 36, yeah. And I mean, even my digestion has changed, and not like
it
really as
gets
far
worse.
along on my life journey as Sully is. So
It continues to get worse.
yeah, things change, right?
Oh yeah.
Uh, One of the biggest things that I've learned and taken away from you, and I think this kind of goes down to the core of what Evermore Food is, the marketing terms. And I mean, I'm just going to say there's a lot of marketing fuckery out there when it
Oh
comes
yeah.
to dog food, any industry, but obviously for dog food.
Pet food is
Um,
pretty.
what's that?
Pet food gets pretty dicey.
Yeah. So reading through ingredients lists and packaging can be super confusing, even in the human food sector. So I'm hoping you can give some clarification to some words that might pop up to pet parents a lot, because there's a lot of overlap between things in the human sector food, or the human food sector, and the pet food sector. Grass fed versus grass finished.
Okay, right? So, and there actually were regulations around this that kind of got rescinded, but pretty much all ruminants start their life on pasture, right? Like, you don't have like cows having the first 18 months of their lives like in a stockyard where they're getting fed grain. They're all grass fed. Think about it, grass is free. Um, Until they hit a certain age, that's 6 months before slaughter, then they'll go to what's known as a feedlot, or they get like fattened up, right? So that is a cow that is not grass finished. And then if it's 100% grass fed, grass finished, they spend their entire lives eating grass. Now, 100% grass fed cow doesn't necessarily need to be on pasture their entire life. They can actually feed them grass based feeds, and still technically be grass fed, but in a more confinement situation. So there's like a lot of pieces to parse through here. Or they can be grain finished on a field where they're still eating the grass, but they're getting supplemental food. So there's all kinds of permutations for what can happen when something is marketed as grass fed.
That is so confusing. Like, I thought I had a good understanding of grass fed versus grass finished. And then you
Yeah.
say that there could be grass based feeds.
Oh yeah. I
So that's not, and also at some point, 100% of cows are grass fed.
Yeah, when they're born, they're on the fields with their mothers, drinking their mother's milk and grazing on greens that are grass. Um,
So if a package says grass fed, that doesn't really mean
yeah,
anything because all cows are grass fed at some point.
exactly. I mean, theoretically, it should say 100% grass fed or grass fed, grass finished. Although
Okay.
I do have to say, I am seeing less and less claims where it's just grass fed, but not grass fed, grass finished. And maybe that's
Okay.
just because consumers are getting savvier about this stuff.
Yeah. Asking the questions, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's not just something that people should choose because they're bougie and they want, like, to be super sophisticated or anything. The cow itself is nutritionally different when they are grass finished versus having a based diet, correct?
Correct. You're going to see a much better omega ratio in terms of when they are eating grass and not corn and soy. like they're going to have much higher levels of omega-3s and lower levels of omega-6s. It can be quite dramatic, that difference. We actually, when we went from Nyman Ranch, which at the time they did not have a grass-fed program, they were grass-fed grain finished, but like an amazing brand, very high welfare. And now they actually do have a full grass-fed program. But at the time, like that's what we could get. When we switched over to 100% grass-fed and like tested our omega ratios, it changed by like 3 points. Like it was so dramatic, the difference there
Wow.
from a nutritional standpoint.
Wow. And I think a lot of people don't understand the difference between omega-6s and omega-3s. So omega-6s are obviously important for you, but they are inflammatory. This is what feeds your immune system, which is an inflammatory response to fight, any illness and disease that you have. And the majority of kibbles especially, but I think a lot of foods that we eat are high in omega-6s, which causes all that inflammation. So it's really important that for not only for yourself, but of course we're talking about dogs, that we are looking at that ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s and understanding that omega-3s are what are bringing down the inflammation. Um, do you have, because I've never gotten like a clear answer from any of my research, do you have like a specific ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s that you're comfortable? Because kibble is what, like a 20-to-1, omega-6s to 3. I kinda get, like, in my research, 3 to 5 to 1.
Yeah, anything under 5 to 1 is considered anti-inflammatory.
Okay,
And that's really what we shoot for in terms of my company, at least, is 5 to 1 or under. And there's a little bit of wiggle room there. And what you're
yeah.
gonna find is poultry does tend to be naturally higher in omega-6s
Mm,
than and it has to do with feed, like, right, a lot of it has to do with feed. And beef, if it's grass-fed, is gonna be, and lamb, it's tend to, these ruminants, if they're grass-fed ruminants, tend to be lower in omega-6s and higher in
gotcha.
omega-3s. Um, Turkey actually has like the highest of all the proteins that we work with, has the highest linoleic acid content, which is just
Okay.
fascinating.
Again,
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah, it's why if you like notice like turkey treats get like funkier way faster than other
Mm,
treats, and a lot of that is like the omega-6 content.
gotcha, because 'cause they're
Yeah.
oxygenating and going rancid.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Not that
Okay.
omega-6 is very necessary, linoleic acid, very necessary, and I think
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you clarified that because so many people think that all inflammation is bad, and
Yeah, we need it,
we need it.
right? But not that much.
It's why my shoveling is gonna turn into muscle, is inflammation.
To bring everything right back around.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, all about the same.
Another marketing term, which I think has a little bit more regulation, is the term human grade. What does that mean?
Sure. So human grade, and I think a lot of people actually discount the idea that it means anything, and think like, oh, it's just marketing. But really, when you look at human grade, it's about every aspect of like the sourcing, the manufacturing, the transport, the storage, the shipping, like every piece of it meets the same standards that it would for human food, like manufacturing. So not only are the ingredients that you get, do they need to be human grade, in the case of meat, like USDA inspected and passed, but then it needs to get to your production facility in a manner, where it's transported at the appropriate temperatures. Then the production facility, needs to be, if it's meat, like USDA, if it's going to be marketed as human grade. It needs to follow the same USDA protocols that it would be for cooking human food. So it means like cooking to a certain temperature, cooling, like doing all of those processes. Then when it leaves, again, if it's a fresh or frozen food, it needs to leave in a temperature controlled manner and then go to a warehouse that's storing it appropriately and then follow shipping protocols that you would follow for human food. So literally every
Mhm,
piece of that process. Now, and that is for finished products that it could be human consumed, right? Not supposed to be marketed for human consumption, but whole product. Raw food, by the definition, can't be human grade, even if every other aspect of it would follow the same trajectory because the finished product isn't intended to be consumed in like a cooked form. Isn't human consumable, right? You're not going to eat your raw dog food.
No.
Then it can't be considered human grade.
Gotcha. So does that mean that the chicken that I buy for myself, can that be human grade? Because that's also a raw
It's
product.
so stupid. Like, like, don't get me started. The chicken that you buy for yourself can also like have salmonella, you know?
Right.
But like the understanding is that you're cooking it.
Right.
So basically, a raw product can be sold, but with the understanding that it's being cooked. I mean, I think there are some dishes that involve raw chicken in various cuisines, but I will never eat them.
No thanks. Too much of a gamble.
But yeah, so and the idea with dog food is that it's getting where it's going in like the final consumable form.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, just again, a lot of little layers to
Yeah.
everything. Okay. Another one that I think has even more layers, the term organic. I feel like organic is one of those words that, people find a lot of comfort in, but it's also really unclear as to what it guarantees. And after hearing your talk at Feed Reel, again, a lot of layers and different certifications that mean different things. Can you kind of break down some of those?
Sure. So organic, it's really interesting. People have this like idea of what organic is, right? Like people say that we make organic dog food all the time, and we don't. Because organic is actually a controlled legal term when it's on a label or in marketing materials. And basically it means that the product like conforms to the USDA organic standards, right? And standards have various components. And I'm like, oh God, I have to remember and it's mostly defined by like the inputs for the food, right? Like what is or isn't going into the food. So with an organic food, it has to be raised, if we're looking at meat, without the uses of antibiotics or added hormones. If we're talking about produce, there's very controlled number, like which pesticides can be used. And it's pretty much only things that qualify as organic pesticides with some exceptions that are like delineated exceptions, but there's plenty of times when there's not organic pesticides used.
Mhm.
As far as like genetic modification, like no GMO ingredients are allowed in organic production. So again, these are the things that are not allowed, right? As far as other things, like you would think that there's like an animal welfare component. And while there is kind of on the books, like, oh, treat these animal well, here are the standards, there's so many loopholes around it that organic farms can resemble, like they can be factory farms, right? It has nothing to do like a giant chicken barn with 50,000 chickens that are can be chickens getting organic feed, and that's organic, right? With like a little door on like one side of the barn that they'll
Yeah.
never see.
So sad.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. So that's just kind of the basics in terms of inputs. And then, it is supposed to be about like, better environmental stewardship, but there's a lot of things that like don't happen. Like I learned actually when I was kind of putting together the Feed Rail talk that plastic is used a lot in organic farming as like a mulch, and that they're not allowed to use biodegradable mulches, but like plastic mulches are okay. Like so counterintuitive, right?
That seems shady.
Right, totally shady. And then you'll notice with like pet foods, or foods in general, you see things at the end of like the ingredient list, and you're like, wait a second, that's not organic. And that's because in order for a food to qualify as organic, it has to be 95% organic by weight, by ingredient weight, which leaves a lot of room for that last 5%. Um,
Yeah.
but they do have to be on like an approved list. What's really interesting, right? A lot of people made a lot of, hay about the fact that there weren't specific organic pet standards. And it was always just like, okay, if it follows the people standards, or if that was basically kind of like, oh, if you follow the human food standards, you can make those claims. And it was like one little line in the USDA code. Recently, there have been pet standards put into place with some differences, like allowing for byproducts, also for synthetic taurine. And that is probably going to be rescinded due to lack of enforcement resources.
Okay.
So the separate organic pet standards, while they exist, they might not exist for long.
So they're not going to redo them. They're just going to take them away.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it is a little up in the air. I have to say, they're like, we don't know if this is going to stick around. At the same time, they developed organic standards for pet food. By the way, they also developed organic standards for mushrooms.
Ooh.
Right? I don't know if those are going to stick around either. But
Oh,
yeah.
I feel like that's super important.
Yeah, and then to add another layer of the organic thing, you can also call out specific ingredients like made with organic
Hmm.
turkey. You'll see that made with organic vegetables, made with this, and that's basically the food needs to be 70% or more organic, like organic by volume, by weight. Sorry, like
Okay.
my geometry from like middle school is getting screwed up. But yeah, so that needs to be 70% organic by weight to make that made with claim.
Gotcha.
Very confusing stuff, right? I've even screwed it up on a label. I'm not gonna lie.
Just layers upon layers. I think one interesting thing that I have learned from you is just because something isn't labeled organic doesn't mean that it's not organic, right? Because you
Yeah,
get these
or that it's not like using those same practices, right? Like
okay.
there can be a situation where, okay, for good example, like cows, right? When you're certifying as a rancher, you're certifying the land. So as well as the cow, right? So not only are you not using antibiotics or hormones, but you've got to make sure there's no chemicals in your field.
Oh,
And that can be really, really, really difficult to like account for like lots and lots and lots of acreage, and you are paying to certify that acreage.
yeah.
So like ranchers can do all of the right things, but like say there's a fence post at like the way into the field that like neighbor Bob like sprayed something on, that could disqualify the whole operation, or it's just too expensive to certify all that land.
Yeah.
If you are looking at certifications, all of the grass-fed certifications that I know about cover the same standards, right? The antibiotics, the hormones, things like that. So you're getting those same practices without necessarily having that USDA bug. But it's really important to ask questions, to know that you're getting what you think you're getting, or to like look for the right certifications.
Yeah. Which is hard as a consumer.
Oh yeah.
And then it sounds like things changed all the time.
Oh yeah. Things change
So
all
it's
the
hard
time.
even from a business standpoint.
And people really spend a lot of time and money, lots of money and market research into figuring out what sounds good and putting out a
Mm.
package, right? There's a lot of ways you can make things seem really great. I mean, I'm sure I get hoodwinked sometimes too.
Mhm. Are there any other marketing terms, general marketing terms like that, that you think are misunderstood?
Can I pull out like my Hall of Shamers?
Yes, please.
So, because we talked about ruminants and grass feds before, ranch raised
Ooh,
is
okay,
one of
yeah.
my favorites because all livestock operations are technically ranches. Like that is the definition. We use farm a lot with chicken, but really like ranch means livestock operation. So if
Yeah,
you're eating it, it's raised on a ranch.
gotcha.
Another one is family farmed.
Mm,
So farms, I think it's something like 96. I have like a really great deck with all of these statistics, but the vast majority of farms in the US are family owned, right? Like when you see things like eggs from, uh, uh, now I'm struggling to think of an egg company. Chicken from Purdue, like it's not Purdue who has these farms, right? Purdue
right.
is not going and raising these chickens. Purdue is contracting with individual farms, and those farmers are raising the chickens that can then get sold to Purdue.
Mm,
So what this means is, the corporation provides like the chicken genetics. They'll provide like a bunch of different inputs, right? They'll provide the feed, they'll provide the husbandry practices, and then the farmer, they provide things on their end like raising the birds, the barns, the labor. So that's how it works. That's how that relationship works. So if you're saying family farmed, in the vast, 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 circumstances, that means you're just saying it comes from a farm. So it's sort of
right.
the same thing.
Uh-huh.
And my absolute favorite, my absolute favorite of all time, because I love chicken, is cage-free cage-free chicken.
Mm-hmm.
That's all chickens that are raised for meat in the US are raised without cages. We do not have chicken that we eat that's raised in cages. Where cage-free is meaningful is with eggs. So those are my top 3 Hall of Shamers
Yeah.
that I kind of like sharing.
Interesting. What about terms that you do actually love?
Ooh, that's a good one. I don't like any of them.
It's a good one and an easy one.
Well,
No.
actually, so this is great. Pastured has recently been defined.
Okay.
Like in terms of if you see pastured on a meat packaging, that now means that like the animal needs to spend more than half of its life out on pasture. So I think that that's meaningful. It's a relatively new designation, so I'm not sure what the implementation timeline on it is. But it's particularly salient when it's also joined with a certification, like certified humane, for example. If there's a certified humane certification, that's going to mean something specific with a claim. So I like to use eggs for this one. If there's certified humane eggs that go along with the term pastured, that means the birds get like 108 square feet per bird, right?
Okay.
So
Specific.
specific, it's like highly specific. So that is what I like about a lot of these certifications, is that they have extremely specific parameters attached to them. Like certified
That's an
humane.
odd number.
Yeah, right? I don't know where they got this number,
I'm
but
gonna get that.
right? Like where did they get that? But I like certified humane. Like certified humane means different things in different instances. So not
Okay.
every thing that you get that's certified humane is pastured. And this is where these certifications get confusing for people. It can be certified humane free range or certified humane just cage free. And all of these things mean very specific things, like contextually.
Mm.
So, but it is a really good way to kind of like back up those additional claims. And then another thing I like is Global Animal Partnership Certification, which is a step system, right? Again, this is a sort of thing where it's like these things are highly specific, and it's like, how can we expect consumers to know all this, right? So the thing about GAP is it's like a 5-step system where like GAP 1 doesn't really mean anything, and GAP 5 is like this animal's living the most perfect life ever. You want their life, right? And but like even like within that, like different animals have different standards, and you're gonna see things more commonly. So like GAP step 4 is pastured. You don't want to see any ruminant below GAP step 4, right? Like otherwise they're not being out on pasture. That's weird for a cow. But then, GAP step 3, which is free range, like indoor outdoor, that's like meaningful for a chicken, right? But it would be terrible for a cow. There's
Right.
all these like little nuanced things that we're expecting consumers to know, or that people using these certifications expect consumers to know. But mostly they're just seeing this stamp on this box and they're like, oh, okay, it means something. And sometimes it
Yeah.
does, sometimes it doesn't. My favorite certification that I want to see on a label, which you will almost never see on a label, is animal welfare approved, which is the highest welfare system, but it's really relegated to like much smaller producers. In case this is all very confusing for you, I do love the ASPCA has a really great resource called Shop with Your Heart Grocery List, and they sort of compile food. Like it's not just pet food, it's like pet food, groceries, all these things, farms, and they basically provide a resource for people to find more humane products. So I think that
That's
that's really
cool.
helpful and like really actionable for people.
Yeah, and it kind of boils it down to somewhat more of a
Like you
situation.
you don't have to remember all this, right? Like I don't even know how I remember all this. But then it's weird when I talk to people, because I'm always assuming that like just because I know it doesn't necessarily mean other people know it. So
Right,
it's
right.
hard to remember that sometimes.
It's in your head,
It's in
not
my
everyone
head.
else's sometimes.
Yeah.
I get that. Let's kind of switch over a bit to ingredient sourcing for a sec. And then We'll also talk about some like farming methods and things that you kind of hit on from the beginning. When people are looking at any sort of dog food, we're told to look at the ingredients list and to find that meat should be the first, ingredient list on there, or the first ingredient on the list. Again, the feedback's capturing. When we're looking at kibbles specifically, I don't think that people fully understand that, yes, chicken or beef or turkey might be the first thing on that ingredient list, but what kind of quality of meat is that? Is something that comes from a rendering plant. It's not something that would be considered human grade. Can you kind of speak a little bit on that?
Just in terms of what to expect, like it can be, yeah, I mean, it can be from a rendering plant, but it can also be from a specific source, and it's really all over the map. If you are going to be doing kibble, I do like companies that go for those certifications. Like
Mhm.
Open Farm would be a really good example. Don't want to call it a competitor, but they are going through that step of doing those certifications. It doesn't necessarily mean it's like the best part of the animal or, but I think even looking at companies, because look, not everyone can buy the human grade food or even do the
No.
fresh raw thing. So I think if you
Mhm.
are in a situation where you are going to be looking at potentially lower quality meats, those certifications are really helpful to at least know about the animals that they came from. But yeah, it's a little bit of the Wild West. I mean, even for us, like you will have these ingredient brokers calling and being like, oh, I've got like 8,000 pounds of this. And yeah, it's grass fed, like we'll sign a piece of paper that says so. It just like fell off the back of a truck. Like that happens. There's all these kind of like hustles that happen where people just seem to have like extra of something. And I think that happens with a lot of pet food companies. Like the confidence with which these brokers approach us, I can't imagine that they're not selling the same stuff to all these other companies, even fresh companies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like fascinating and just weird, frankly. It's like, okay, you have this one-time supply of 8,000 pounds of
Where did this come
where
from?
did this come from? Yeah, there's a lot of that. And, one of the great claims that I'll see that means nothing is you'll see traceable. I love that
Mm,
trait. Like traceable, like you don't know where you bought it from. I think that should be like the bare minimum,
yeah.
right? But yeah, there can be like a huge variation. Actually, I know someone whose family ran a slaughterhouse when he was a kid. And he said, like, once a week they had dumpsters out back where just like all of the stuff that you don't want to think about went. And like once a week, the trucks from the rendering plant would just come and pick up all the carcasses. So, I mean, these are animals that were already sitting out in a dumpster for a week. Um,
Eee.
and that stuff goes to rendering plants. And like that is what's going into pet food. And I'm a fan of, look, every part of the animal should be used. I
Mhm.
100% believe that, but it needs to be happening in an intentional way.
Yeah. I've read I've heard some. I wish I would know the sourcing of the video, but it was an old video, and I think it was the dude of the FDA or, the U one of what no, AFCO, maybe it was AFCO, and he was just, talking about that a bit, about, like, we gotta do something with these animal parts, and it's gonna get cooked up and heated to crazy temperatures anyway, so it's cool. And I think a lot of people don't realize that the laws treat our dogs as, uh, like like,
Property?
almost like what's that?
It's property. They treat our dogs
Property.
like
Yeah, yeah,
property.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it makes me so sad that I can't even think of the right word. But you can feed them gross things and it's fine. And
Yeah.
then
It's
by the
pretty
law.
disgusting. It's like, yeah, my dog will like try to eat roadkill off the street. That doesn't mean I want a company selling it to me to feed her,
That's
right?
free off the street. I'm not
Yeah.
gotta go pay for that.
Yeah. It's like just,
Sheesh.
yeah.
So one thing that you had mentioned again from the very beginning was how you love animals so much, and that's the very core thing about how you guys source why you make the sourcing decisions in your meats, right? We're going to make sure that we're going and getting our animals from well reputable ranchers and farms, and not just not feeding meat.
Yeah.
How do you feel about companies that are feeding or making vegetarian or vegan diets for dogs?
Look, I think their heart is in the right place. And as like traditional kibble has shown us, you can keep an animal healthy and even sometimes thriving on less than optimal diets as long as they're getting all
Yeah.
of their nutrients. That said, I think that that's a very like arrogant position for human beings to make, to take the choice right away from our animal. Because I guarantee you, if you put down a bowl of vegetables and a bowl of meat, you know, maybe there'd be some freaks that would go for the vegetables, but in 99.99999% of the time, they're going to choose that meat, and that is what is biologically appropriate for them. It's like,
Yeah.
if we want to save the environment by eating less meat, we should eat less meat. We should be intentional about sourcing from operations that are practicing regenerative practices, that are really good custodians and stewards of the environment, rather
Mhm.
than imposing this very like anthropocentric like way of being onto our animals. And
Mhm.
the other piece of that is, in order to make something nutritionally complete for and bioavailable for a dog, and now they're like starting to do cat, and like don't get me started on that. um, but the way to make things bioavailable already involves putting in highly processed ingredients, right? Like there's
Mhm.
things like pea protein, and like these are all like very processed ingredients. You're adding a ton of supplements. Like this is not something that a dog or a cat should be eating naturally.
Yeah. You're feeding them just like these enriched things that not like humans aren't even supposed to live off of those either. I mean, Dr. Connor Brady said something very funny in one of in his books. Have you ever read his book?
I'm gonna sound terrible, but I haven't. And frankly, like outside of work, because I'm so immersed in this food, like people think I listen to every podcast and read every book. I'm like,
No.
no, I need to give my brain a break and do something else.
He it's a funny one-liner, and I'm not gonna do it justice because if you've ever heard Connor or talked to Connor, which you have, he's funny, he's witty, but he says something like, "These dog food companies, they say they can have a complete and balanced diet. How come they haven't given the secrets to the idiots down at NASA because they
Mm.
haven't been able to do it either?" Again, I didn't know justice,
Yeah,
but I mean, it goes
I
to
get
show
the
that this
I
is
get the
not just a
idea.
dog food company.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when Soylent came out, the meal replacement drinks. Do you know about this company?
Uh-uh.
They came out like, I mean, they're still around. It's like they're called Soylent, which is like a play on Soylent Green, which is gross. But it's basically a soy-based beverage that's like fortified to the point where they
Oh,
say it can meet all of your nutritional needs for a day, which basically is like, that sounds like Ensure. And
yeah.
it basically is, but like packaged for like tech bros in the grind, like, "Oh, I don't need to get up from my computer. I'm drinking this Soylent." But basically it's like, yeah, that's what it's like, dog food Soylent, right?
Yeah. Ew.
They sell, you could go and buy some, try it for yourself.
Are these people also wearing, like, diapers so they can't get out of their desk to just,
I,
like, have them?
Cause
They're just so busy.
all for the grind. Yeah.
I can't eat, I can't go potty, I have to keep working. You've mentioned regenerative practices, and I think that, regenerative farming is a term that people have heard, but they possibly don't fully understand what that means. What are regenerative farms?
Okay, at the end of the day, it all comes down to soil. Every regenerative practice is about soil health. So soil can do what soil does best, which is capture carbon and sort of regulate the cycle, like the nitrogen carbon cycle, to make sure that we're not like carbon emissions are like getting pulled out of our atmosphere. So at its root, Right. Regenerative farming is about soil health. What that looks like in practice, and we think about it most with like large livestock, but
Mhm.
it can be, across the board for any type of animal raising or, for plants too, is rotation, right? So you don't have cows all in one place. You kind of move them around to mimic the natural patterns that wild herbivores would have, right? We
Mm.
used to have like buffalo roaming across the country. And the Great Plains weren't always the Great Plains. They weren't always these like dry, arid lands, right? They were like verdant, and we just killed all the buffalo and turned it into farmland. But basically, it's mimicking those natural patterns in movement. So hooves can turn soil, like manure can get packed into it. So you've got those fertilizers. And a lot of times it involves planting cover crops to kind of keep the soil in place. But this whole process kind of encourages natural biodiversity. You've got plants like
Mm.
growing with their roots and that's capturing the carbon. It's like far more complicated than I'm making it sound, but basically the idea is just like working in concert with nature and natural cycles. You can do this with
Gotcha.
like chickens as well. It involves a lot of times like planting trees to kind of maintain cover for them. And again, I mean, chickens, like they're birds, they will hang out in trees. Um, it's
Yeah, that's true. There's a couple of like houses next to my facility. They have chickens that just kind of roam around, which I think is super cool. And they hang out in trees as
Yeah.
you say that. Yeah.
I mean, the highest welfare chicken operations, they perch. They're birds, they perch. Like,
Yeah.
so part of that enrichment is trees. And yeah, so basically, it's about not draining the soil, right? Not draining the resources to the soil, like putting back in what gets taken out and not just doing it by like dumping fertilizer, right? Things like crop
Yeah.
rotation, that is regenerative. No till, right? The no till
Mhm.
movement, that's what cover crops are for. When you till the soil and you disturb it like that, you're kind of releasing all of that carbon that's getting trapped and like destroying microorganisms in the soil. So,
Oh,
right? Regenerative is basically doing everything you can to maintain soil health.
okay.
I think I
And
explained that
it's
in a really
hard to
complicated
do, and a
way.
lot of people aren't doing it because it's costly. Like,
It's expensive, right?
okay.
And anytime you're changing your farming operations, it's expensive. Anything that's an upgrade costs money. And a lot of these ways of doing things better also involves like less density, less
Mhm.
intensity. So we all really, it's about, and again, this obviously is not true for animals, but we have human beings, like not necessarily stopping eating meat because that's not realistic, right? Like
Right.
it is really not realistic. Human beings love meat. We have from like as long as we've been human beings. But really being more intentional about it, being like, okay, we're gonna eat less of it, but it's gonna be better.
Hmm. Love that. We've talked a lot about land animals and plants. Let's talk a little bit about sea life.
Fishies.
Yeah. So we obviously have talked about not well, we have you and I haven't talked about, but I like to go for wild caught versus farm raised. Can you tell us some pros and cons between those 2?
Sure. I mean, well, wild caught, like, look, our oceans are extremely out of balance, right?
Mhm.
Extremely out of balance. And the more stuff we take out of the ocean, the worse it gets. Um, so I'm just giving you the cons of wild caught first.
Yeah.
And there's this thing called bycatch, right? So for every fish that you catch that's getting eaten, sometimes hundreds of organisms that aren't getting eaten are caught and just thrown back out into the ocean, right? So
Wow.
this it can be really, really, really wasteful. Um and wild, like, basically I've heard it described as like warfare. Like these big fishing vessels and the big nets that they use, these are basically factory farm warfare to like catch these fish. Like advanced technology is used to like kind of like hunt down schools, like they'll have like drones and stuff.
Wow.
So it's not it's not someone on their fishing rod like pulling something out of the ocean. This is like incredibly industrial, and in a lot of ways it's depleting the ocean. Then there's
Yeah.
farming, right? And fish farming, like other high intensity agriculture, like these fish can be packed in super tight. They often have to have antibiotics to fight off something awesome called sea lice, which is as disgusting as it sounds. There's even like GMO fish in some case, like GMO feeds. There's just all of the problems with factory farming on land happen at sea or in, inland operations too.
Mm.
Me and like benefits of wild, obviously the animal's going to have a more varied diet, so you might have like better nutritional content. Another con of wild, they keep going back and forth because like
It's okay.
another con of wild is something like heavy metals and microplastics, right? Like
Okay. Yeah.
our ocean is filled with heavy metals and microplastics, so they're kind of like sucking this up from the environment, especially like bigger fish. So my favorite thing right now is something I'm like really into. Is basically it's land-based. It's something called recirculating aquaculture systems. And basically the idea is mimicking ocean conditions. So having like constant current going that the fish swim against, keeping the water at appropriate temperatures, constantly filtering it. So it's always clean water. And it's basically this very inland way of raising fish that kind of counters all of like the disgusting aspects of fish farming. And I've been to, actually, shameless plug, we're actually launching treats that are from an operation like this as part of
Cool.
our I didn't send those ones to you because we made a lot less of them.
It's
But
nice.
it's from one of these salmon operations, and I went and I wasn't sure what to expect. There are these like massive tanks, like they're so huge. And basically what happens is at the beginning there's all these like tiny little like baby fry in like one tank, and then as they grow a little they divide them, and they keep like dividing as the fish get bigger. Like there's less and less fish per tank, and so that way they have room. And the whole operation is run on solar, and
Okay.
then they use the waste to make fertilizer. So there's a lot of places like this popping up around the country, and I really, really think like it is the future of like humanity eating fish.
Yeah.
Because as much as wild caught is like, the gold standard as far as people is concerned. And I'm not like, we use some wild caught marine ingredients and we will continue to be using wild caught marine ingredients. But I think it's like really important to look at these alternatives, these sustainable alternatives. And
Yeah.
also, when fish are raised in this fashion, it's a highly controlled environment. So you don't have to worry about heavy metals or microplastics in quite the same way. So that's my plug for
Amazing.
RAS aquaculture fish. We've got a place by me. I get my steelhead from there. It is like
Cool.
you can taste the absence of like contaminants. It's so good. It's like sushi grade. Sometimes we'll just eat it raw. But anyway, so I think that was a lot of word salad.
No, that was
But
perfect.
there's like
That was
pros and
gonna be my
cons.
next question, the
Yeah.
RAS, yeah.
Yeah, and then for certifications for fish, there's like MSC, Marine Stewardship Council. You see this one a lot. They also have resources where you can like look up the fish that you're getting and the region that it's from, so you can see how like
Mhm.
endangered it is from like overfishing, which is a big deal. And then there's ASC, and that's for like for farmed fish. And that's like Aquaculture Stewardship Council. And if you are going to get like a farmed fish, like that's really what you want to look for.
Gotcha. So much info.
Too much.
How big are these RAS facilities?
I mean, like the one that I went to was massive. Like I don't even know how to put like a square footage on it because it like
Like a
was
football field stadium? Like the
bigger,
whole
like
stadium?
multiple. Like it was like huge.
Wow.
Maybe a little bigger than a football stadium, actually, but
Okay.
not. I actually did think about like, okay, what does a football stadium look like?
Depends on which one
I don't
too,
do
they're all
the
so
I don't do
different.
the sports ball, so yeah. I mean, it's just it's massive. Like these tanks are massive. Like if I had one of
Yeah.
those tanks in my backyard, it would be a bigger swimming pool than I'd ever need.
Wow.
And it is cool. I mean, look, are fish sentient beings that are probably happier in the ocean?
Mhm.
Yes. Are they getting like the best possible existence in this type of scenario? I truly believe so. I mean, you see they had these like little porthole windows and you could see them like swimming against the current. It was cool.
Huge. And I think as long as they're, mimicking the ocean life as much as possible, and it sounds like if they're controlling the pollutants and things like
Yeah.
that,
Like
they're
I said,
probably also healthy.
I think if you're gonna do fish, it's like the best way to do it. I'd like it to be more vertically integrated. So like, they have fish in their food and those are wild caught from sustainable fisheries. And that's basically for all aquaculture.
Gotcha.
Like with larger fish, there's always small fish. And I would love to see it like be like a full vertical, where they're raising the smaller fish inland too. I don't know if that's happening or not, but it would be cool.
Gotcha. Cool. Do you have more time to spend with me? Because I want to talk about formulating Evermore.
Okay. I mean, we work with a formulator, but like, we can do.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, sure. I've got a little more time.
Okay, well, you tell me when to stop because I was like, "Ah, these questions are
Yeah, no, keep
so
going, keep
important."
going. I love to talk. I live in the country,
Okay.
so
um, Let me read my question first. Okay, so a lot of pet foods use synthetic vitamins and minerals. Some will say, or some like marketing things, whole food ingredients, and we only use minimal supplementation. When someone is looking at an ingredient label, how can they know if the nutrients that they're getting is coming from a whole food source or supplements?
um I hate to answer this because it's going to be more obvious than you want. What supplements are on the ingredient list?
Yeah.
And then, a lot of these online companies that are like direct to consumer are pretty shady. Where they'll list like just their ingredients that are not supplements and then either be like with vitamins and minerals or they'll be like really dodgy about what else is in there and to like actually like find the full ingredient list you got to like somehow like deep dive into the site. Like I hate it.
Yeah.
But so if you're in one of those scenarios, you are not getting a complete and balanced diet without some organ meats, right? Like if you're not seeing supplements on a list, but you're also not seeing like liver, heart, like there's no way that's complete.
Gotcha. So the organ meats is like the golden ticket there.
Yeah. The other thing I will say is there is a supplement blend that's all whole foods based that I can think of a
Hmm.
couple companies that use it. So you'll see like a million fruit ingredients and vegetable ingredients at the end of the list where you're like, how is that like what? How are there like 20 like vegetable
Yeah.
ingredients? And that's from this one specific supplement blend that's on the market where it's like hyper
Okay.
concentrated. We don't use it because it would give us overages on a lot of things. But there is sort of like this plant-based premix that's out there. Shellfish is another one that you'll see on complete diets if people put in shellfish. We don't because I don't want to kill anyone because those are allergies that are like
True, true, true.
yeah, I mean, if we did a new formula, we'd consider it, but we don't wanna put shellfish into any of our existing ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, the minimal supplementation thing is wild. When we started Evermore, that was always our goal was food-based nutrition to get as much with food as possible, and over the years, we've actually we had to have a couple more things in the beginning than we do now, but we were working with I'm not going to say who it is. She was kind of consulting with a supplement company, but she was like still is a big deal formulator for like big deal companies. And we were talking about like, making the food complete. And she was saying, it's like, oh, you're going to need this and that. And she rattled off like a list of like 15 supplements. And we were like, hold the phone. We're just going to like run it. We're going to do a test run without anything in it. And let's just see where we are.
Hmm.
We did that and showed her our results, and she was like, "Oh, I always knew it was, like, theoretically possible to do that with food." Like, it was, like, mind-blowing to this, like, nutritionist formulator. And, we were doing that before it was popular. Like, I think we didn't know who Steve Brown was at the time. We didn't know about, like, Steve's as a company. He was doing,
Yeah.
supplements. But apart from that, that was, like, not a thing anyone was doing, like, at all. We hadn't even heard
Yeah.
like, it wasn't a thing that anyone else other than us was doing until, like, a couple of years ago. Well, at this point, it's more than a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I can think of the other company that was kind of the first to do this. We do still have zinc in our formulas.
That's hard.
We know how to do it, but it's just gonna change fundamentally, like, what our formulas are. Like,
Gotcha.
we kind of are going for, like, a lower phosphorus, like and anything that we could do to, like, jack up the zinc would kind of throw other things off. I mean, we're we're looking out there and see what like little ingredients we could find that won't throw everything else or be a palatability issue or
Mhm.
be shellfish that kill people. But yeah, so it's interesting watching it go from like we were the only people doing this to people like melting down about our like tiny amount of zinc gluconate. So it has become like this interesting, like, I don't want to say purity test, but I think it has gotten to the point where it has become almost like a purity test. Like we need to have no supplements, but there's only like a few pathways to get there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So in some ways that can limit formulation if that's like the standard that you're trying to hit. That's sort of like a bit of
Yeah.
a devil's advocate position on it. Um
Would you say it's hard to formulate a new recipe, keeping out synthetic vitamins and minerals and only using whole foods?
it's not hard because like I know how to do it, but
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily mean it's making, again, I think that there's kind of limited pathways, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And that might not necessarily be like reflective of what we necessarily want to do with the formula. And you'll say
Yeah.
even companies that like their main products are like no synthetics, it's like then you look at like their puppy food and it's like, oh, there's dical in there, you know.
Yeah.
There's certain things that are just really, really hard to do without synthetics.
Yeah.
Which
I go for it.
I was gonna say, which again, like we make a food that like only has zinc, you know, and it's like, but
Oh,
and I
sure.
could see how it's very not easy. It is easy to not do it, but yeah, just about
You
what
have
you
to
want
want
to.
to do it.
Yeah, it's just about what you want to achieve with your formulas.
Yeah.
And believe me, we fought like tooth and nail with our formulator over our cat food. Um, because we really did want to keep it as minimal as possible. And at the end of the day, I think we're adding like two things, but they're things that you don't mess with, like thiamine with cats, you
Yeah.
know? Like, um, so yeah, anyway, that's my thesis on supplements.
I prefer to feed things that don't have synthetic vitamins and minerals. And so I tried my hand at the animal diet formulator and formulating my own little cook at home recipes for Sully. And it's wild how much you just change one ingredient and then it throws everything off. And no matter what I did and how many other ingredients I got, the zinc was always the
Zinc
one
is the
thing where I was
hardest.
like,
Zinc is the hardest. And you know, if you want to throw in some oysters, or bump up the
even with
meat,
the oysters, yeah.
yeah, no, it definitely, I don't know what it is about zinc. It is just the hardest. And it's not like you can't find pure zinc in nature. Zinc is always bonded to something. Did you know that? That's like a
Mhm.
fun fact. Like it's never like just zinc. Like even if it's like
Right.
zinc in food, it's like there's always something going on there. It's interesting.
Interesting.
Um, but
That's why
yeah,
she's so fickle.
yeah, zinc is fickle.
You said that you had a cool announcement regarding sex eggs. Can you tell us?
Yes. So and I think I need to back it up and describe what the issue is here for people. So
Sure.
this is like a very, very like harrowing fact that apparently only 1 in 10 consumers are aware of based on a 2024 study. And that is when you get your eggs, they're laid by hens, right? And those hens are different from the breed of bird that is raised for meat. They're optimized for egg laying. And these hens that lay these eggs come from hatcheries. And just as many, 50% of the chicks that hatch are male. And the egg industry has nothing to do with these. You know, there's really no use for these male chicks. So immediately upon birth, they get what is known as culled. And what this means is they are killed in ways that are not necessarily something that we would think of as humane. It'd be pretty
Hmm.
horrific. And this is how it's always been. And now, thanks to technology called in ovo sexing technology, which has been around in Europe for a while, it's actually required in 4 EU countries right now. You can't even do things conventionally anymore. But basically, this technology allows us to determine before the egg hatches fairly early on in the gestation process when they can't feel pain whether or not the chick is male or female. and then they can take those eggs that are male and make sure that they never hatch. They either get turned into like feed ingredients, they can be used for pharmaceutical applications, and there's like other industrial purposes that they can be used for. So they're not wasted, but they are disposed of before the male chicks can feel pain, which is like a huge
Gotcha.
step up from a welfare standpoint.
Yeah.
And after only being available in Europe for quite a while, we now have the first sexed egg operation in the US, which is where we
Congrats.
get our eggs, which will make us the first pet food company using sexed eggs. We're going to be fully transitioned over by the end of this year. We already have them in our products, but in order to like fully transition the supply chain, that's going to be by the end of the year. So we're really excited. This is just another animal welfare milestone that we've hit.
Yeah.
If you're interested in getting sexed eggs for yourself at the grocery store, the brand that we used is Nest Fresh. And they have like a little humanely hatched like little logo that they put on their packaging. And another brand that I'm also a huge fan of, that is, they are also launching sexing. I don't think that they have them on the shelves yet, but the brand is Kipster, which is a Dutch company that has operations in the US now, and they're awesome. Like they actually do really interesting work with eggs and poultry.
I guess I never really thought that. Yeah, we don't eat male chickens.
We eat male
I don't.
chickens. The broiler chicks we eat males. Um,
So okay, so chicken
so
breast also from. I just
yes.
sounded so. I sound like
So
Jessica Simpson here.
they're different breeds. Like the
Okay,
breeds that are optimized for egg laying are not optimized for meat eating.
gotcha.
And
Okay,
then yeah, they're just completely different breeds. There are breeds that can be both, but from like in our industrial farming situation, they like don't make enough meat or lay enough eggs to be like ideal, if that makes sense.
okay. So just not the best.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
Poor dude.
not. I'm not the optimal for our factory farming system and
Right.
American palates. I'll just put it that way.
That makes sense. Well, Hannah, thank you so much. I told you we had so much to cover, and
Oh
I
my
feel
god! Wow, it's been this was a long one.
it's been over an hour. Yeah. And I feel like we just like dipped into a little bit of everything. You are such a wealth of knowledge, and I highly appreciate you spending over an hour with me today. Um, can you tell the listeners where they can learn more about Evermore?
Sure, you can visit our website, evermorepetfood.com, and that's got like, and I get it, it's actually stuck in 2015 right now. We're doing a redesign,
Okay.
which makes this podcast not evergreen. I'm sorry. But evermorepetfood.com. We also have our Instagram at evermorepetfood. For those of you who still do Facebook, / evermore.pet.food. And we also, this is what I'm particularly excited about, we have a Substack. That's me. I write our Substack.
Cool.
I'm trying to rope other people in the company to doing theirs, but right now it's just me. And that's where we kind of take a deeper dive and have some essays and like opinion pieces. And you can follow us on Substack at Evermore Pet Food. I actually go deeper into the sexing in
Okay.
our most recent one. So
Very cool.
that's how you can find out about us.
I will definitely be dropping some links in the show notes, and I'm also a very proud affiliate as well. So I'll be dropping my affiliate link in there for all the listeners. Well, Hannah, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And listeners, I hope to catch you guys at the next episode.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.